happy to have the opportunity to spend some time with you all. And especially since we all have this common denominator of interest. And that's, it's like a relief to spend time and have a conversation with others that have the same interests. Not to say that there aren't multiple layers of interest, but it's rare that when we go venturing into the outside world that we find anyone that's, that concerned with how well the chakras are rotating or how the energy system is functioning. Anyway, so very good to be here, as I said, and I wanted to have a chance to specifically look at what people have done with the Chakra Workout since we published the course and people enrolled. And I'm, sincerely hoping that everyone is using that information. And one of the key reasons that I'm so enthusiastic to have others dive in is because of the way it's been affecting me after all these years, finding another level of working with energy and working with chakras. And through the interaction with the chakras, discovering some of the features that are not often talked about. As I've said many times, there's lots of books about chakras, and it's nice to know all the conceptual information. And there are some basic techniques that people might learn in their practice to diagnose or to create a balancing. And from what I'm discovering more all the time is that is a kind of an entry level, and that there are many different layers where you can dive much deeper and discover a lot more, not only about the chakras, but the interesting way that they interact with the other parts of the energy system, meridians, the vibrational body, and okay. And not only that, but how they are integral. The chakras are integral with what we're perceiving and producing in our life process. Now that sounds very cliche from a lot of things. And, it is that idea of like how things affect our life process, or sometimes they say how you create your own reality or how reality is created around you. But it's so much relying on the different balances and interactions within your own system. Because in the end, the whole environment and the whole reality is working through an attraction and repulsion mechanism. And everything else is more like a elaboration of that, an expansion of that idea. But basically everything in different rhythms of time are moving according to expansion and contraction. And another way that I like to think about that, expansion and contraction, is convergence, the coming together, or the divergence, where things are moving apart. So attraction, repulsion. And that's happening, in our bodies chemically, it's happening vibrationally, it's happening with people and places and things that are around us. And ultimately, we can see how that's happening if we zoom out in the megatrends that are happening right on the whole planet. Phases of divergence and convergence. We can see that with economics. We can see that with politics. We can see that with trends, anything from music trends to art trends, all working on this convergence, divergence, becoming more focused and then becoming more diverse. So you learn more about that and you start to receive direct information and input through doing this kind of work. And some of the parts of the procedure answer, or at least open the door for understanding, well, what do we do with the chakras? They're there, we've been unconscious or semi-conscious about them, but now together with our awakening of consciousness, how do they play with that? And how is this changing into the state of being where we regulate those chakras in order to balance, create symmetry, create healthy state of the environment around us, at least the immediate environment around us. And that's the question, I think, the main perception that starts to get answered by this direct interaction. And I think it's good just to throw off, to just put aside all the information that we've learned from the books and any other ideas that we've had all these years. And now, not to say that we can't bring it back in or we can't, reference that information, but for some time, put it aside completely and just purely rely on the information you get through the direct contact. So the general practice that we laid out in the chakra workout, it's very potent. And at the same time, it creates a preliminary fundamental groundwork to build on. I'm in the process now of creating a next step with that. And you may have, hopefully, already discovered many of the things that I'm going to introduce in the next level of the chakra. Excuse me, my throat. Take a glass of water. So the next step of this will be continuing what we developed in the first level, but also going into some more specific use cases. And I know in some of the other live streams and classes, I've already talked about this. But learning how to regulate and apply our connection to the chakra and the chakra's interaction with the physical and the energetic, and how we can regulate the system through that for social harmony, relationship harmony, activity harmony, and the things that are friction points in the daily life can be softened, can be harmonized through learning how to work with specific adjustments of the chakras. And again, you will get this information on your own. And what I'm simply doing is, after working with this quite a bit over my whole lifetime, really, but especially in this last few years, that you get so much information that takes you to the next step because it's already recorded in your own system. It's like a library of information. And that's why we also encourage everyone to write to us, to put it out on the website that we have, that just to offer your experiences are so valuable, because your experience then verifies. It's a validator for someone else's experience. And then it becomes more realistic for people to trust what they are discovering. So I'm looking forward to producing this next step, more specific use cases that are built on this chakra workout. The general application, a couple of simple things that are very reliable when we go through this step-by-step practice. It really harmonizes and deeply activates the parasympathetic nervous system. And I'm not going to talk about that because I think all of you know the indicators of the parasympathetic, the functions of it, but it is really the regenerative process of the body, the building of energy in the body. And so when you go through the chakras and you connect with them with your intention in mind, and then you create this adjustment of flow that we talked about, you're, of course, developing that ability to regulate. It's like building muscle, or muscle memory if you play an instrument, where, your hands start to understand where to go almost automatically. So this kind of development is coming when you work with it every day. And the other I wrote this down here, is when you go through the chakras and this parasympathetic reaction occurring on every stage of the body, you're also creating a flow, chemical flow within the hormonal system. And that's incredibly important, not only for our physical health and our longevity and our immunity, but also the hormonal energy is a springboard. It's a launching pad into the higher states of consciousness. There are chemical transmutations that take place from the hormonal system that give us insight and give us higher degree of perception. So this is happening automatically if you're practicing it day to day. Now, another thing that I mentioned in some recent live stream and maybe in the past other classes, I like this analogy between this chakra work and light body work with the analogy of learning a musical instrument. I think many of you have done that. I've certainly done that. And even when you learn one instrument to transpose your abilities to another instrument, there is what they call a learning curve. But when you're just learning a new instrument for the first time, you produce a sound, whether it's on a keyboard or on a string instrument. And usually the first times you produce this sound, it's not that great. It sounds maybe squeezed or not that resonant. And then you keep practicing. And then you notice that the sound becomes more full. It becomes warmer. It has more, what you could say, range of tone. And then as you're doing that, you start to bring different notes together and create small melodies, small harmonies then. And so this is a progression. And in the beginning, this is work. It's not easy. Like if you play a string instrument, you have these calluses, your fingers hurt, but you have to have that initiative, because you know that if I can get over this first barrier, learning how to produce the note, and then learning how to produce a series of notes, and then those melodies can combine and create pieces of music, different phrases of music. And then when you get to that point, you can play your instrument, and it's really a pleasure. Now, some days it's, maybe not as easy as others. But for the most part, it's something that you sit down, you expend energy. It takes energy to do it, but there's something pleasurable about it, joyful about it. And then if you develop further, there's a creativity to it. So I'm saying this because through my own experience and also the experience of others that I've talked to, and most immediate talking to Lynn, when you practice this every day, it gets to that point where you're creating a more flow. It's easier. It's easier to connect. You start to realize what is the benefit of creating symmetrical flow of the chakra, of being able to create the movement from containing it at a focal point and letting it spread through the body. And as you do that, then it becomes more alluring to do it. So different times of the day, even when you wake up. When I wake up, it's the first thing. I want to do that to create that balance first thing in my day. Sometimes in the afternoon, if I'm finding it hard to decide what to do. Sometimes I have different things. I want to do them all, but can't get to one. I will sit down, harmonize the system, and then it seems like I'm doing something that is one of these things I wanted to do. So I really encourage you to do this initial work. Stick with it, and then look for the reward, which is a pleasant experience, a joyful experience, so often a blissful experience. It's an experience of self-discovery. And that's a great thing, to start to understand more deeply why you are like you are. And it also starts to reveal why you've had the experiences that you've had, What is your real nature? Now, these are things that happen when you're willing to take a deep dive and you're willing to break through the resistance points of your conditioning and the conditioning of your perception, and really take a deep dive into the substructure, energetic structure of actually who you really are. What is your true nature? So that's what this work really offers. It does have this more, it's layers. There's the surface layers, there's the intermediate layers, and just doing it, this parasympathetic hormonal effect is very powerful, very potent. But then this more illuminating level, when you start to deep dive into that, is really, I think, something unique and something that humanity at some point will get to. But, this is, for us, it's cutting edge from where we've come from and all the practice that we've done for all these years. So I wanted to say that in encouragement to do this initial work, do the processes. Now, talking about the processes, I laid out kind of procedures in that chakra workout. Different things like feeling that sensation of numb and tingling, focusing it, and then letting it spread, and then refocusing it. And then from there, feeling, does it move in one direction, counterclockwise or clockwise? And then if it's wobbling or feels like restricted, and then changing the direction or doing the tractioning. And so those are all different things that we can do. And I tended to do them in a certain order, and I wanted to say that you can mix that order. If it comes to you while you're practicing, to do one of the steps before the other step. But it's very effective to have that procedure. And a lot of times, this idea of feeling clockwise and counterclockwise is one of the things that is the least easy for some people. And I wanted to say, this is one of the reasons I wanted to do the live stream today, that doesn't really matter. The motion takes place on several levels. When you're feeling the numb and tingling, this is motion already. In order to create the sensation, there has to be movement there. And when your mind and intention connects, it amplifies, accelerates that movement, so it becomes more, and it becomes greater amplitude. Now, since that's energy that you're feeling when you feel the sensation, then when you let it spread, you're letting the energy from the chakra, from that center, disperse. So you're moving it to the organs, to the glands, to the tissue, to the muscle, and then bringing it back. And you're creating this dispersion of energy, collection of energy. And when you start to get that ability to move back and forth from collect, focus, disperse, there is a elevating sensation that takes place from that. There's some frequency shift of the whole system into like a higher level of perception. So again, it has all these characteristics of basic effect, positive effect on physical systems, but then it also has like a overall experiential effect. So I wanted to say that because if you feel the sensation, this already is motion. And you can just work with that. And at some point, if it has been difficult to feel clockwise, counterclockwise, stick with the ability to just feel the sensation, let it go, spread, and you can feel it spread deep into the organs. Bring it back to the center of the chakra. And I also would recommend, now, this is a little bit, well, you could use this small, but it should be actually maybe 3 or 4 times bigger. But an image like this. And then, but the thing is that when you use an image, you could just use like a coin image, a circular image. But I like this diamond type image. make sure that if you're using an image to focus the energy, that you're not just using like a projection, or just an imaginary from the mind. You need to be able to have an image and the sensation at the same time for it to be effective. But I find that sometimes if you use an image, it's really helpful in the gathering, the focalizing of the sensation. But make sure that you also get the sensation with the image, because the image alone it's not really good enough. Anyway, you can use, this is one I like to use, this is diamond configuration, but you can use any, like a circular if you like.
You use it oriented in a certain way?
Well, usually like this, where it has like this apex going more into the body, and more like the wider part, funnel part, more outward. Learn to notice what it is that you're noticing. Because a lot of times if it's not what you originally thought, you dismiss it, or you don't even get conscious of it. But if you're looking to see an image, it might not be the image that you put there. Suddenly you see something else. I would say it's always worthwhile, generally worthwhile, just to notice that and to let that register. Now, the second thing that I would recommend is for the spreading, you could either, well, one very common one is to imagine or use the image, not to imagine, but to use the image of a cloud spreading. But again, the cloud is very helpful for the to locate the spreading, but you need to have the sensation as well. So spreading, collecting, spreading and collecting. And sometimes when you go back to collecting, then you might just notice that there's this motion. And then you can see clockwise, counterclockwise. But also, if you don't, again, feel that, when you have the sensation there, focused, you can do the tractioning. Feel your mind and your intention pulling the chakra, front or back, pulling it away or pulling them toward the front, pulling them toward the back. And I find this very helpful because then when sitting again, letting that tractioning and pulling and pushing go, that the feeling of symmetry now is much more clear. And also the sensation in general is much more clear. So I really wanted to recommend that you don't get hung up on the rotation. That will come over time. So you have sensation, one type of movement. You have rotations. Now it's not just surface, it's a spiraling rotation. Keep that in mind. But then there are, and this may sound a little abstract in the beginning, harmonic overtone motions. And those harmonic overtones are like when you play a sound, let's say on a piano, and that mechanical sound is the C of the scale. If you hit that note on a piano and you listen carefully, there will be other notes more subtle on top of that, and those are called overtones. So just like you have different types of, different layers of motion within the chakra. So in the beginning, when you feel the rotation, it may just be like that, like an oscillating type of motion. But then when you feel the chakra more deeply, more sensation, you may notice like within that, there's something moving at a quicker rate. So that's another layer of it. And then you could work with that. Anyway, when you start to feel those harmonic motions, those overtone motions, you're already in a altered state. So then you explore the nature of that altered state and the information that's coming in that altered state. One of the things that you can always go back to, and I highly recommend this, and I have to say that I'm doing it in different ways and creative ways, is the basic exercise, the preliminary exercise. And what we did was massage the center of one palm, feel the sensation. Now, when you connect to the sensation, again, important thing is that it starts to become more intense. And then when you let it go, it's not only here where you massaged, but comes through the back of the hand. And then spreads on these metacarpal bones into the carpal bones of the wrist. And so it not only goes from this point, but spreads. And then the experiment, as you well know, is to bring your attention to the other side. And when your attention connects, you start to get the same sensation without doing the massage phase of the exercise. And I think that's very profound to know that, because how did it get that way without doing the massage? Your mind and intention directed energy flow there. And it just shows us clearly in a very simple way that we can do that. And the rest of what we're doing with the chakra workout and the other things that we do beyond that are just a variation of that kind of ability to regulate with the mind and with the attention. That massaging, it kind of creates an initial landing, like a runway for your mind and intention to go there. So if you're concentrating on a chakra or any of these preliminary type points, and you're having a difficult time to get the sensation to develop, don't hesitate to just do a massage there, or with the chakras. Now, like let's say this solar plexus, I can massage there, or I can just tighten those muscles and release. Tighten. In the back, if I extend, I'm extending right on that T11, 12 area, and when I release, sensation is there as a landing spot. And then if my mind connects, that sensation becomes more intensive. You can also just reach back with the knuckle like this and tap on it to get the back of any of the chakras. You can tap on the sacrum. So the ideal is that you can create the sensation just with your mind, but don't get stuck on that. Because when it's not cheating to tap or to massage, it gives the connecting landing point for your mind and intention. And over time, you'll find that mostly you can just sit down, bring your awareness there, and there's the sensation. Bring your awareness there, then you can feel what's happening with the motion. But like the musical instrument, you have to work for that. You have to practice it. It just doesn't come like automatically, I guess, unless it's a rare case. I certainly had to practice myself to get it. So those are the key things that I wanted to bring up. That's a lot of information, actually. If you go back from when I started now, talking about using some variables in the procedures that I showed, talking about your perception of the motion, and how you use the ones that you can feel, and don't get stuck on the ones that you can't feel, and then use some kind of stimulus. Sometimes I'll even use. Be right back. Something like this, or like a stick even, and tap. So the key there is that it helps the mind connect. Once the mind connects, the sensation grows. Once the sensation grows, you start to get the subtleties of the motion. Okay, so I would be happy to take any kind of question that you have. I know that there's a number of people here today. And again, it's funny because I say, good to see you. And I'm like, well, you don't see me. But actually I do. Lynn usually tells me who's there. And I haven't, it's like I do see you. So it is good to see you. And have you float by as opposed to stop by. And I'd love to hear some questions. that you might have.
Or even comments about their experience.
Yeah, or comments about your experiences that you've had up till now.
The main question that people had written in over the last, few months of using the material was that there was some frustration, having trouble feeling emotion, and you already addressed that in a way. So
Yeah.
I know for me personally, this is Lynn talking behind the camera for anybody who's on the stream. I've been doing this work almost every day, often going through one of the processes in the class because I like to have Saul guiding it, somebody guiding it, or my mind tends to wander. And some of the times I notice an improvement, and other times I might go through a week or two where I'm really not noticing any change. And so I have had periods where I'm frustrated with that.
But then on the other side of it, when you do have like a clear, helpful or interesting experience, how is that for you?
It's good, and even when I've been frustrated, I notice I want to do it. Like somehow I'm making the time to do it, which is surprising me sometimes because it's not always a blissful experience. It's really practicing, But I can always get a tingling, numb sensation. But sometimes the movements and the tractioning, you're talking about it, and even though you're saying, "Oh, don't worry if you don't feel it," it does affect me and start to get frustrating sometimes if I don't. So some of the tips you just gave are helpful.
Well, if you have a time where you're sitting with it, working with it, and you start to lose attention, I really do recommend that you see, well, where is your attention going? Because something keeps drawing you away. And, so for me, if that's happening, I might move to the work with the vibrational body, expanding and contracting, moving out into the emotional and mental body, opening up the membrane. That would lead me to working with the soul star, something like that. And so it's kind of showing me that there's maybe a particular element, something more specific that my system wants to work with. My higher self is drawing me towards. Now, I think it is also a good discipline sometimes, though, to work with not getting distracted. So you have that choice either way. It's up to each person to know which path to take in the moment. Sometimes it seems like a little humorous to me. It's like I'm trying to, I want to go through like a process. And even within that procedure, I do it different ways. Sometimes I'm going up the back, down the front, up the front, down the back, starting out with both together, going to individual. I personally like to do, different variations. But I do notice that sometimes my part of me wants to go to one element, like really just work with one chakra, like the throat chakra. And even though all the sensations are similar, throat chakra, heart chakra, solar plexus, I find that there is a uniqueness. There's a likeness to how all the chakras feel, and there is a uniqueness in each chakra from all the others. And I like identifying that. So I think that's a big tip too, because if you're drawn to a particular chakra, like the throat, and it may be just the front, or front and back, or back, then it gives you an opportunity to discover the unique feeling inside of that chakra. And that unique feeling, of course, is connected to the function and or functions of that chakra, like how it's activating the thyroid, how it's affecting, the ear canals. So you have those options, and at that point you're being creative with it, and then that could last actually several weeks, and then you find yourself back into the full routine again, and it feels right because now you've strengthened an element in that then triggers another level of development in the whole system. So it's like a playground, and when I talk about this musical instrument analogy, you can talk to any musician, like any great musician, and they'll tell you not every day playing in front of the audience or practicing is a great day. Sometimes it's like really work, and they're working through resistance. And other days when it's flowing, it's like, wow, this is really exhilarating. This is really joyful. So it's like that. And you have incredible tools. And also the applications when you're giving treatments, because many of you are body workers or counselors, and using the configurations of the chakras to augment the flow of energy in the treatment room.
So as I was coming up with my questions, you kept answering them ahead of time. I was going to ask you, I was like instantly drawn to a particular chakra, and I was playing with it in different ways, but immediately I had a direction. And as you were talking about the direction and how you can go in different directions, I was seeing what it was going to be like. In the other direction, there was resistance. So I carried on in the way that it felt right. Is that correct?
The direction of resistance can be interesting, especially if you know that there's any kind of problem going on in that area, organs or tissue or like that. And to change the direction, to develop the ability of the mind to interact with the energy and change the direction. And then, as I was recommending on the class, you get it to flow in that other direction, and then you let it go. And oftentimes it will go back to the initial direction, but you'll see that it's smoother. But I feel, and this is something that's, up for personal decision. But I think it's important to be able to change the direction at will smoothly. So if you're trying to change it and there's resistance or friction there, it could be that there's just too much motion in that one direction. And my understanding and my experience of the chakras is that at different times, in different activities, they will move one way or the other. And one direction, and I think this may be different for different people, but one direction is more energy gathering and the other one is more energy distribution as a whole. The chakra oscillation is a constant energy gather, distribution, but for periods of the day, then it'll go into a more distribution phase or a more gathering state. So therefore, I think it's good to be flexible and fluid, moving the chakra in both directions. But then when you let it go and you're not controlling it, just let it go back to the way that it wants to flow and notice if it's smoother, more symmetrical.
Thank you. So it would be, in a way, it would be similar to an acupoint. Gathering, there's stagnation, that kind of feeling.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
We're just taking it like totally in a way out of the physical level and applying it in something that's more higher percentage vibrational.
You mentioned like to look at a different image.
Yeah.
So I went mental image inwards, and it worked really, really well. And then when you said take your awareness out to an actual, an image or a piece of paper or a shape or maybe a crystal, then I didn't have as strong a reaction in my chakras. So I found that quite interesting.
Yeah, because when you start to use the image, what happens is you start to become more preoccupied with that image and you drift away from the actual sensation. So, you may not need to use images actually, unless they just pop up. They just are appearing. But this idea was more for people that are having trouble to focus energy or get this idea of focus, distribute, focus, release. And that's why I'm cautioning in that don't get preoccupied with the image. Just use it as a marker, because still the important thing is to go deep into the sensation. That's definitely the priority.
Jennifer Wolf said, it's helpful to hear you say that you practice differently on different days. I've been really enjoying getting to know the way that my chakras speak to me. I can get the felt sense of the centers. I'm incredibly grateful for this work and for the validation of the energy. It helps me anchor more deeply. And then she also says she loves the gathering distribution phases.
Me too.
Anna Maria in Italy is saying, I've improved a lot with the pain in my hip joint. If I forget to do the work on the chakras, the pain partially returns. This means that I have to continue to reach the goal of a full recovery.
This practice is not ultimately meant to be work. It's part of like the life flow. And so, we want to see it as not something we have to do, but when we get to this higher levels of it, it's more like something that's interesting to do, that we want to do, and that has a reward to it. Like anything else, we might go see a film or play a sport, all these different kinds of eating, anything that gives us satisfaction and pleasure. But this is like an ongoing thing that we start to engage in deeper and deeper, because there's part of who we are that's continuing to evolve. Let's use that word. And the nature of that evolution and what that is presenting to us, we need to be able to learn how to work with it, how it affects us in our movement through the physical and now the vibrational plane, because there's a large part of each of us that is functioning on a daily basis in the energy vibrational plane. When a baby is born, and it's a common analogy, they have hands, but they don't know really what to do with them. And over time, you learn specific activities that you can do with your hands, including like artistic type activities, as I spoke about before. And so it's the same now. We're like babies being born into this vibrational existence, and we need to learn how to use our metaphoric hands in that dimension, so that we can grow there and be productive there and enjoy our life there. If we don't do it, it's like a child that never learns how to do anything with their hands. They don't learn how to do anything for themselves. And that's what we're learning now. So that this next iteration of human being, the next development beyond Homo sapien, where that takes us. And that's what it's a vibrational dimension. And that's what we're learning how to navigate through this kind of work. It's not only, though, for something going out into vibrational plane, it's highly influential in how things operate in this physical plane. And so I want to stress that, because I have found a lot of very helpful ways to use it, and I can see directly, almost multiple times on a daily basis, how it's affecting me in a useful, positive, enjoyable way.
Zoe wrote, I'm finding that some chakras I can connect the back and front through a smaller attachment location. And when I can get that connection sensation centralized, the energy feels like it then extends all the way through on a horizontal plane, and a sensation of space through the body. On occasions, this also can extend out the sides of the body as well. I've had this experience too.
There's other types of movement taking place. I'll get into that further up the line, because I think for now it's really important to get these fundamentals really clear. But in the meantime, if you discover things on your own, by all means. But I would say, and this is only my opinion and what I do, that I'm aware of a lot of these, you could call them alternate movements that take place at the energy centers. I still feel like I don't want to just then replace the fundamental movements with those. I want to be able, just like we're going focal point distribution, be able to go mostly to the fundamental movement and sensation, but then go out to alternative movements, but always be able to come back. It's part of the play aspect of this, but we want to have our grounding points and the fundamental movements and the fundamental rotation, or feeling of symmetry. I would say even more fundamental is symmetry. That's That's like grounding, or having your rope when you're climbing in the mountains. It keeps you in your safe parameter, in your homeostasis.
Jennifer Wolf wrote, "It feels to me like the chakra energy expands into the container of my body. I love how it takes up more and more of the insides of me. I don't exactly know how to describe it, but I feel the wave experience of energy more. I feel the wave experience of energy more and more fully animating my particle body, like being able to breathe out to the edges of my skin."
Oh, nice.
And Herman wrote, "I also have days it works better and others it doesn't work as well, but I always feel some benefit of working with the light body and or chakras. Sometimes I get answers or feedback during the day."
That's true for me as well. I'm very grateful that everybody took their time to get together today and share this common thing that is going on between us, around us. One thing that I will kind of give you a preview of, and I'm going to work with this, not a lot because it doesn't need a lot more, but on the next level of this chakra work, is this preliminary exercise. And to me, it's really great. It's powerful. Sometimes I'll show this to clients because their priority in the healing process that they're in is really vibrational. And especially a lot of times when I get a client that's telling me, well, they went to this doctor, that doctor, another doctor, and all the doctors told them it could be. We're not sure. So it's like this discomfort they're having in their health and well-being, could be their emotional state, and in a way they're being used as an experiment by the doctor with this medication or this medication. And so usually when it's this inconclusive diagnosis, it's a really good chance that there's something going on at the vibrational level. Now, something's always going on at the vibrational level, but I mean as a priority in this situation. And after you work with it for a while, it could shift. And now their priority is to make a chemical adjustment, to make a structural adjustment. But anyway, I'm just saying that one of the things that alerts me to the fact that it is a energetic priority. And so I will just sit them down and I'll show them this exercise at the end of a treatment. And then I see if they do it. Of course, in the next treatment, I'll encourage them if they haven't. And if they won't go there, then I see that they are resistant in a way to improving their health, their well-being. Not to say that, it doesn't make me angry at them or uninterested in them, but it's showing that when you get down to the crux of what is affecting them negatively, they have resistance to going there. Anyway, if they do the exercises, they start to see some improvement. Like people that have migraine headaches. If you can teach them how to do these preliminary points and activate them, they learn to draw the excess energy down out of the head. And sometimes they get total relief. And sometimes they'll say, well, it was good to get some relief, anything. And when they're in the migraine, it's harder to do that work. So, of course, I'm encouraging them to do it when they don't have a migraine, to develop that skill, to develop that muscle, so to speak. So, it's an interesting thing to show people, I think, anyway, regardless. But this is a time that I really get this alert when I'm working with someone that's struggling, they can't find an answer, they're getting like this inconclusive ideas. They tried this medication, that medication. One of my favorites I'm being sarcastic, is when they're told, "Oh, you'll be on this medication for the rest of your life." Anyway, I don't believe that people have to stay on a medication. It could be an adjustment that they need. I'm not saying they shouldn't ever take a medication, but it's a temporary, it's a crutch, and they should figure out how to move beyond that. And getting connected to their energy system is a really fundamental level that they can go to. Once they get the preliminary exercise in the hands, in the feet, and the ability to do both at the same time, then I'm recommending, and I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't know if I did this in the Chakra Workout course, because I haven't looked at it for a while, but to go back and forth, almost like distribution and collection. You can go do the hands, then do the feet, get them activated, or I like to say you light them up, and then feel the point on the feet and the hands together, vibrating. And then go to the feet only, then go to the hands only, and go back and forth. If they can get that, and people with no experience can get it, then they're starting to get to a point where when they get a headache, they can activate those points and draw the energy, the excess energy, down from the head. And they almost always get enough percentage of relief that it makes it worthwhile. Plus, a lot of the people that I work with realize this is great. I can get relief without a medication, without even an herb. I can do this through my own interaction with my own energy system. And this is a layer that only we can go to ultimately in our healing. And healing at a certain point transforms from being something where we're working our way out from a negative state, a discrepancy, an imbalance, where we have a general state of health, but we're looking to synthesize into a higher state of experience. This is in a way what replaces healing. It's like synthesizing, you could say. And this kind of exercise and going into the deep part of the energetic matrix of the body, meridian system, chakra system, the bioplasmic body, the Kundalini fields, as some of you have studied. When you start to go into the connection and to feel the sensation of that system, then that's where you go for the deepest level of this healing. Now, for some, it could be healing a physical malady, an emotional or psychological. And it's sometimes, and it could be for a period, healing, and then you go into the state where you realize I'm synthesizing. I'm not only balancing my chakras, but somehow now I'm increasing the capacity of the chakras to interact with the meridians and the chakras to flow between the physical body and the bioplasmic body. And so when that starts to happen, it's a synthesis, and that takes the whole system to a higher state of perception, a higher state of experience, an altered state. And in this way, you begin to be able to regulate it, control it. It's like on demand. So if on demand, you're going to a family function and you want to be present in your more denser earthly state to interact with the people that are not doing energetic work but are more concerned with, then you do it. And then you find yourself having a nice experience interacting that way. And there's all different layers. Like I said, for me, sometimes when I have so many things I want to do and that it prevents me from doing any of them, I sit down and organize the system, and it opens the door to come to one of these things more easily, so that I'm engaged again. This is really, for me, it may sound simple to some people, but this is, to me, it's a great thing because I have so many interests. And a lot of times I, in a way, get overwhelmed with like, well, which one should I do now? I want to do them all. And anyway, so that's like another idea. But I think it can be interesting for you to understand or to reflect on this whole transformation of even the idea, the definition of what healing is. Because for so long, it's like getting better. It's like not having this problem. It's like, can you help me? And that's all good. And this is all things that we can also affect in a positive way. But then there's this place where it changes over, this inflection point, where it's now about higher experience and synthesizing. So that is the transformation of healing taking place. So this fundamental exercise, even though I present it as a preliminary or show it to clients as an entry point, in and of itself, it is really powerful. And so activating, lighting up the hands, then lighting up the feet, feeling them all together, but then bouncing back and forth. And, you go to the feet, don't leave until you feel the feet really vibrating, numb and tingling, spreading. And then bounce it back and then disengage and bring it to the hands. And it's really interesting sometimes because you'll feel the pull to go back down to the feet. But now you will notice that the mind has the ability and the power to isolate back to the hands. And you can do that.
That is, the practice he's referring to is called connecting mind to body. I think it's the second process in the chakra workout.
Okay.
And you don't do this bouncing back and forth, but you go through the basics. And
Okay. So that's like another way that you can do it. That's maybe another level of it. And I think that that's what I want to show today. Just talk about that. And I think that's if you're really interested in the work that we're doing here, that there's a lot to go through in what we've talked about this hour. But there's more comment?
Jan Murphy had another question.
Please.
She said, would you use this practice during Shiatsu or perhaps as self-practice only?
No, I have found ways to make it useful during a session and particularly at the end. Because when the person, especially if I see that they've really been able to have their system become more open, more communicative with itself, that feeling where the energy is kind of pulsing through their system, sitting on the side and then just bringing the energies to harmony affects the whole room.
In your system, you bring the
Yeah.
energy.
And then you can find that it's like doing a certain kind of stretch or pressure point. It affects the whole room. And so that vibrational frequency that it kind of is affected by in the whole room, then of course affects the client. And it just helps to encourage, to empower the more open state that they have, the more communicative state they have within themselves.
Well, and in 2 of the light body exploration days that you did last year, you went into very specific detail on how to then transfer that work during a treatment, where you took the numb and tingling sensation and used it to treat points or areas of the person's system. So I don't know if you were in those classes, Jan, but that's another, if you wanted to take that idea further.
There were a couple of times where we had these exploration days where we got into distance treatments. And so, it's all part of what's coming up for us as we're starting to, our systems are evolving. And part of the, very important part, in my opinion, of the evolution of our systems is, the energetic, the emergence of this energetic system, becoming more mature, and ultimately becoming the light body. So, we're not really there yet. We're just at the birthing stage, really. Sometimes we get insight to the light body, but most of us are still kind of like in the birthing stage. And that's why we need to learn to use our metaphorical hands and feet and legs, etc. I recently did a podcast with a a guy that has it's called Field Dynamic Podcast. And just the same as here, of course, they were like, we were talking together and they kind of interviewed me about my work. But it's just really uplifting to speak with people and to discuss this information. Because as some of you know, there's not like there's not a great amount of outlets that we have. Some of the folks that we know, and in this case at quite a distance. I love that part of it because it gives us a chance to exercise another aspect of this vibrational system emergence. And that is that moving in the vibrational world, connecting and exchanging information in what used to appear to be a big distance. It shrinks that distance because once we connect, the distance is collapsing. And it's like you're right here. Now, Jan, are you in England right now? Is that where Jan's from? Yeah, but it's almost like...
I didn't hear the question.
I was just saying that when we're doing this vibrational work, distance collapses. So that even though you're I'm assuming in England right now, and then we have Herman's over there in Switzerland, that space collapses and we're actually very close together because our attention has gone on to the same vibrational level.
Absolutely.
But we can explore that when we have this kind of interaction. I'm very grateful for it. Anybody else would like to share their experience? So Lynn tells me that a lot of the people that came to the live stream today are going to come to the self-care. And I think that judging by the questions and what you've shared,
The self-adjustment class on Saturday.
Self-adjustment class. Yeah, it's the self-adjustment class on Saturday. I think that you're going to find that this is another really helpful piece of the puzzle. Very potent. That's all I can say. I think you're going to enjoy it very much. It's going to be a day of, it's going to be a vibrational workout.
Are we going to do a process now or no?
Yeah, that was the problem. I think I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to encourage you to go back to the preliminary and play with this idea of moving the feeling of the points back and forth from the feet to the hands. And I would really love it if some of you start to post your experiences. It's really helpful to us to see and to get, to continue to develop the common ground and understand like the common questions that we all have about this work.
And if somebody else, like one of your colleagues, posts a question, Saul or I go in and say things, but you can also give answers and, give your feedback.
Yeah, that's really helpful when it's not always coming from me or Lynn, but it's actually coming from, somebody that's in our group here.
If anybody on the live stream wants to register for the self-adjustment of the spine class, that's this coming Saturday. The information's on our website. I'm sure you've gotten emails, so just letting you know that that's an option for you, and feel free to share that opportunity with your clients or colleagues.
Yeah, because you don't have to be a practitioner to take it. And it could also be seen as an entry level into everything that we're talking about. So if you've done all this work up till now, this will be another way to access a lot of important levels of the body. But if someone hasn't taken all these workshops, it's a really good entry point. So you can look at it coming in from either direction. Anyway, again, thanks a lot for sharing this time with me, and I look forward to hearing from and seeing you all as soon as possible. Take care, everyone.